stochastic real preferences, random utility models, and clear bets in consideration and preferences.
The floor is yours.
Success can you get? Thanks a lot for inviting me. That's a great honor and actually a great challenge as well, because as an academic I don't have much opportunity to present in front of a general audience. So it took me some time to kind of try to distill what I'm doing into something that sounds interesting. And it's like now it's even more, it's harder because after the first presentation, the first presentation was amazing. Thank you very much. And let's see how it goes. So today I'm going to talk about things that I've been working on for the past, say, like 8-9 years, and this is about choices that we make and limited attention. Yes. I guess you cannot see it, but this is an article talking about how people actually have limited attention, and when you face lots of alternatives and you need to think about different things, it's really hard to focus on a particular option. And this is an example of consumers in Texas trying to figure out which electric plant to choose, and you need to pick like 15 different options to see what you're gonna do. More importantly, and I think it's less relevant for Canadians, and I'm from Canada because we have universal health care, but in the US, when you pick a health plan, you need to pick a deductible, you need to pick the premium, you need to pick the coverage, and now think about all possible combinations of at least these three factors. Yes. So there is a huge set of alternatives that you need to pick from, and it's hard. So there are some empirical facts showing that on average consumers are aware of about, say, 6-7 banks, although in their areas you can think of all big major banks, but plus all credit unions, but you just don't think about them. Yes? And some of these alternatives might have been beneficiary for you. Okay? And the issue again, you have to solve a big problem, and that's what economists often ignore. If you go to a store, you see a bunch of products on shelves. Okay? You pick something, how do you pick it? We often don't even know how we pick it. Yeah? So there are some internal things happening in our brains, and again, because of limited attention, people ignore many things. Okay? If you're shopping online, what do we usually do? Say Amazon, maybe Walmart, couple, maybe 3-4 websites. But if you think carefully, you can go to a website of every producer, every seller, and you might find a way better deal than what you can find on Amazon. Okay? And it's not just, and this information is available. It's there. We just don't have mental capacity to or any time, or there are lots of limitations. So why do we care? I mean, it works. Yes, why should we do anything with it? It turns out that companies care, yes, because they won't target you. Yes, advertising, one of the purposes of advertising is to make you aware of a product. Yes. So it's not about changing what you like. It's not like convincing you that you should like Coca-Cola versus Pepsi. Yes, it's about bringing attention so that the first time when you go to a restaurant, the first thing that comes into your mind is Coca-Cola, not Pepsi. Okay? That's the role of advertising. Yes. And from consumer's perspective, from individual perspective, if I don't see all the options or I don't think about all the options, I might be worse off because I'm not picking the first best. I'm not picking the thing that would make me the most happiest. What can we do? So in general, it's very hard to discriminate between preferences, so what you like, yes, and things that you see. Because like in data, you can only see actual purchases. Sometimes you personally don't even know why you did this particular choice. Yes, it's really hard. And one of the papers I'm going to briefly talk about today is a joint work with my co-authors that I did several years ago. We, as I used to be a physicist, I'm not anymore, but I still like experiments, because experiments, these are controlled environments where you can do a lot of things that you cannot do in real settings. So what we did, we surveyed about 2,000 people. Yes, we were offering them menus of lotteries. So lotteries basically, I'll show you an example in a second. Yes. And then we tried to change the cost of processing the lottery without changing the content of the lottery. So let me show you. Again, it's you cannot see it, but here the lottery this menu consists of 3 options. Yes. Option number 1 is basically a default choice that says you're gonna get 12 tokens with probability 1 for sure. Yes. The second option was with probability 50% you're getting this amount of tokens, and there are like 5 mathematical operations that you need to process. It's like 12 plus 7 minus 3 plus 4. Yes. And with 50% chance you're getting another tokens. Yes. And the third lottery is just more complicated version of the second. Yes. And we call it a high cost menu because you need to do lots of calculations before you can figure out the number that's behind that lottery. And it's not moving. Oh, here's the median cost. It's exactly the same menu. The only difference is that the numbers now you need to make less operations. Yes? So we call it a median cost, and the final one is the low cost lottery. This now we have exact numbers. Yes, with 50% you get this, so on and so forth. Yes? So you can think that since the numbers are exactly the same, people should kind of choose the same things. Yes, the only thing that they're different from is like how much like mental capacity you need to process the numbers. That's the only difference. Yes? And standard economic theory would predict that nothing should change. So, and this is a huge experiment. There are 2,000 people. Yeah, so it's not just a small sample issues. But when we look at the distribution, and there were 6 lotteries. Yes, and we give people different menus. Some people were facing only 2, some maybe 3. We were randomizing, so kind of trying to get away of any biases. What we find, and these are distribution for 3 different costs. Yes, and what happens, and so remember there was like a default option. Take 12 tokens for sure. And it was always the same, always press selected the simplest one. Something that often online platforms are doing, they're pre-selecting for you something. And sometimes you kind of need first to speak something, but sometimes they just pre-select the first alternatives. This is the first alternative, and that's what happens. With the easy lottery menu where you don't need to think much, there is some distribution. So some people pick different lotteries. But the moment the cost of attention starts increasing, more and more people are deferring to the default. They just don't want to think. It's hard. And these Amazon workers, they were not making lots of money with these surveys. I'm just going to pick the simplest one. And this is actually, turns out this is in terms of like expected return, the worst lottery. All other lotteries are better in terms of expected return. But they just, because they're a little bit complicated, people don't want to think. And that's what happens in real life. So this is kind of evidence of what I was talking about before, that when choice becomes harder, you just start ignoring. Too hard. Let me just take the simplest option. And that's what advertisers and companies often do. Sometimes they kind of, by law, they have to present all the alternatives, but they artificially complicate them so that you pick the one that they prefer, not you. Okay? These are key insights. Again, people don't choose the best lottery often, and traditional models fail to explain this data. So we kind of tested traditional models with this data, they don't work. But models that take into account this limited consideration, the fact that you don't consider all the alternatives, they work way better. Can we do anything else? Again, like experiments are good, but some people can say, no, I don't trust experiments. These are people, small group, what about population? We have millions of people, maybe it doesn't work. We can also try to do something with real world purchasing data. So in this study, what we did, we took so-called scanner data. So there are companies that collect data about what you're buying. Yes? So they recruit people, hopefully a representative sample from the population. They give them electronic scanners and they say, every time you go do shopping, please scan your grocery list so that we know exactly how much you paid for each product. Yes? And then this information gets aggregated, and then some researchers like me can purchase it and make those companies richer, but at least they get something. Okay? And we know exactly what people bought, but we still don't know what they saw. Yes, and again, when you go to the store, there might be stock out events, some products are not available, but this is not information that we can report. So we still want to do something, and we decided to focus on frequent buyers and ready-to-eat cereals. And the idea here is that if you're going to buy the same thing many times quite frequently, most likely the set of things that you have in your mind doesn't change. Yes, and then observing repeated purchases from the same set of goods, we kind of can try to recover what is happening. And that's one of the kind of results that, well, for our estimation results, these are histograms, so share of individuals that consider sets of different sizes. Yeah, so we were focusing on 5 brands of ready-to-eat cereals, General Mills, Kellogg, store brand. I'll show you the picture a little later. It turns out that about 15% of individuals just look at single product. They don't care. They just grab always General Mills, so always Kellogg. There is a price variation, there are discounts, but people are so loyal to their brands, they ignore anything else. And it's a huge fraction of individuals. It means that their reaction to price changes is zero. As their favorite product can become 10% more expensive and they wouldn't switch. They would be. And this is not about preferences, this is purely about consideration. Yes. Fortunately, there is a large chunk of individuals that look at all the products all the time. Yes. But this is puzzling in a sense, but maybe it is what it is. Again, these are empirical findings. I have to live with that knowledge until the rest of my life. Okay. Then we tried to do a little bit more. Yeah, so this is, again, this is data coming from all the United States. So we can look, maybe there is some geographical variation on what people are looking at. Yes. And like red, blue, and green dots correspond to different collection of cereals that they're thinking about when they're making purchases. Yes. And again, there is something weird, here you have a bunch of people looking at particular sets, but green is everywhere and blue is also kind of distributed. So there is some spatial variation. It might be related to product availability. Yes, so just some brands are more popular in different regions. Okay? And again, ignoring the fact that people don't take into account all available information kind of affects their price sensitivity, which then affects policymakers. Because taxation, when you're taxing people, you're taxing products, it's extremely important to know how sensitive people to these prices. You don't want to tax a lot of things where people are very easy to switch to something else. Yeah? It's like that's why you put higher taxes on tobacco, for instance, because it's really hard to switch from tobacco. And you want to extract as a government, again, staying apart from that being a terrible habit. Yes, this about elasticity. So those individuals who only consider one brand, they're extremely inelastic. You can do whatever you want. It's like iPhone users. I'm an iPhone user, like Apple user. Yes, it's extremely hard to switch me from something else. So then Apple can extract as much as they want from me. Okay? And that's information, I guess, valuable for everyone, for companies and for government as well. And how much more time do I have? Great, thank you. So, and let me give you the final example of clinical consideration. So we talked about experimental subjects, people, as then we talked about consumers that buy ready-to-eat cereals, and let me talk about firms. So we usually think of firms as very rational entities that kind of maximize profits, they know exactly what they're doing, but at the end of the day, they run by us, especially young firms, startups, and people make mistakes. They don't consider everything again. And in this study, this is kind of the most recent work of mine, we're thinking, can firms be inattentive? And especially firms that deciding to open new stores in different locations, in different cities, think of the US, how many markets, like you think of every city as a market where you can enter and you can sell your product, think how many cities there are. Are you considering all possible cities in the US or in Canada? Maybe, maybe not. This is an empirical question, yes, and that's what we want to ask. And what we do, we study the store expansion of two key chains in China. Yes. And we have kind of continuous time date where we know exactly when store in which Chinese city was opened. Yes. And kind of we can use that information to track down whether firms are paying attention to every city, or maybe some cities they just ignore. Yes. Why it matters? Because sometimes you see in a particular region that firms is not present and you say they're not there because it's not profitable. Maybe we should subsidize. This particularly was relevant for internet adoption in rural areas in the US because it's very hard to convince firms to come to rural areas and provide internet. And then they require subsidies from government, which again goes back to taxpayers. Yes? But one thing, it might be not that it's not profitable, they just don't think about that particular region when they're making a decision. So what we do, we kind of identify this influence through the network, how the neighbors affecting your decisions to pay attention to particular markets. Yes. And so these are these two firms, Nail and Taiti. I've never been to China, so I've never tried those brands, but apparently they're pretty big there. And we kind of estimated, so there are about 60 markets, 60 cities, and we estimated for each of them in the beginning and the end what's the probability that firms are considering those markets. Not that they're entering, but considering. Again, there is some econometrics involved how to estimate these models. But in the beginning, when these firms just started operating and they kind of opened approximately at the same time, they ignored. So these are zeros, yeah? So this is the fraction of the markets that has probability of considering close to zero. So they ignored basically most of the markets and they only focused on big cities like Beijing. Okay? But over time, so look at this. This is, I think, Nail. So they jumped almost from fully ignoring the rest of Chinese markets to full consideration, where now they've learned over time. Yeah, so it took them about 2-3 years to learn about other markets, and now they're kind of fully rational in the sense that they're considering all other firms. It didn't happen with the first firm. Yes, I mean, they became more aware, they became more kind of sophisticated, but still way behind the second firm. Again, this is important from the firm's perspective because sometimes it's not about profitability, it's about attention. Yes, and this, again, there is like equilibrium effects that if one firm is entering, this might affect decisions of other firms to enter in a particular market. And it's important for competition perspective. If you have only one firm in the market, we usually think of this as being bad. And we want more firms to participate in the same industry within the same city. And just to conclude, lots of choices that we make are shaped by limited attention. And choice is hard. I mean, it's hard, it's easy to say that it's easy to make choices, but choices, every time you're making choices, you have to think a lot and you have to process a lot of information. And understanding what people do when they're making choice is, I think, is crucial, and these are some first steps in this agenda. And ignoring limited attention often misleads predictions, which are important for government, firms, and policymakers. And let me know if you have any other questions. Thank you. Yes. Yeah, so that's a very good question. So it's about, so for those of you who haven't heard it, so the question was, do we kind of control for observable characteristics like gender, age, income level? So we have that data, so we were collecting that information from participants. There, our objective was to kind of get the representative sample from the US population. Yes, so we tried to match the gender and age distribution of the population. We haven't done much work on looking at particular strata, so particular subgroups, but this also can be done. But that's a good question, thank you. Yes?
Basically, I'm curious, right? So you are taking a human brain and equalizing it to the brain of the company that have several human brains, and you are saying it's equal when they make decisions.
No, not exactly. I'm not saying that they're equal. So, kind of the idea here is that I'm trying to approximate. Yes, again, the world is way more complex than the model can work. Yes? But the idea here is that there is, at the end of the day, there is a CEO making a decision. Yes? Well, there might be a manager that's making a particular decision whether should I open a particular store there. So this, I'm kind of thinking of this as a representative model of just one person. Again, it's really hard to model a firm as an entity of, say, 100 individuals that making decisions simultaneously. But I would still think of this as an approximation rather than, I wouldn't take that model too seriously.
Okay, but you are still claiming that both humans and companies have limited attention.
Yes, good. Any more questions? Yes.
Yeah, so you talk about serious. Did you consider like geographical? Let's say like Florida, it's like very humid place, and like mountains, like a mountain region, it's like very dry. It's like let's say like same like cereal quality of milk, right? Like it's a like.
Well, so again, this is a good question, but so short answer we didn't.
Okay.
Yeah, short answer we didn't.
I'm just curious, like, is there is a like possibility to find like let's say like how I could do that.
I mean, in principle, it's possible.
Right.
I've never thought about it, but it is possible. Like this type of data is, I mean, so for each purchase, you know the zip code of the family. So you know I mean, maybe not exact location, but the zip code is often enough to trace this type of data.
Thank you.
Yes.
In technique, you can apply the same logic to politics also, right?
Maybe. I mean, I don't know.
But that one probably is not done with economics somewhere else in a different area of sense.
So some of these things are very technically involved. Yes, and these are very new things. So like the last paper is not even published yet, so it's a working paper. And 2 other papers were published maybe like in the past 3-4 years. So these are very recent things, and hopefully it will be picked up by other fields, not just by economics. But I agree, like people make this not just in consumption decisions. You can think of politics and many other things. Thank you for your comment.